been able to adopt to solve those problems. If you're either in the farm to fork market linkage vertical, which is the marketplace vertical, or you are providing access to quality input using technology, or you are providing access to financing using technology, or you are providing mechanization and novel farming, or you are into data, artificial intelligence, and even robotics. So there are different business models that the agri-tech landscape is solving, and different companies are doing fabulous, interesting things. So much scale, so much impact, but it's either a case of, are we really, really making the impact? Are we raising that amount of money? Why aren't we hearing it as loudly as, I would say, our fintech counterparts? So it's important that we deep dive into those conversations and see what is really, really happening in the space. Just a quick introduction of your host, VorianCorelli, the company. We're called the Matching Company. We're basically a B2B marketplace for agri commodities. We match demand and supply of agro commodities, and we are the first company in Nigeria to be screened for listing at the Lagos State Commodities Exchange to raise 20 billion naira, and that would really impact the level of liquidity within the ecosystem. And we are driving these conversations because we want other agri-tech players in the ecosystem to be able to raise such liquidity, increase their valuations, and make the ecosystem extremely vibrant. Before we go into the webinar proper, just a few housekeeping rules. Everyone is currently on mute. Don't feel frustrated. It's just the webinar, the rules that the webinar has, so that we don't talk all at the same time. That's why attendees have the chat button. And we have been able to say each speaker is going to have 10 minutes. We want to keep this very sharp, crisp, and interesting. So 10 minutes to each speaker on their topic. There will be a typical 1 minute handover, but it's going to be 10 minutes. And then we want to give a full hour to questions, comments, engagements, and at the end. So we're going to unmute a couple of people. So if you're interested, you can, while conversations are going on, state it, and we'll just unmute you, and you can direct your question to the speaker. And also, while conversations are ongoing, questions are being dropped in the chat box. So I'd really appreciate if some speakers can go in there. If there are any questions targeted at you, please respond to it. That'll be very useful. Each speaker will present for 10 minutes, like I said earlier. Please raise your hand for verbal questions at the end of the presentation. There's an emoji for raising hand, so just quickly raise your hand. For non-verbal questions, use the chat room and write the speaker name before the question so they can respond. Without further ado, I would like us all, and please use your emoji if you want to use a clap emoji. Would really appreciate that, so that we welcome our speakers very warmly. I would like to welcome Kunal Prasad, who is the co-founder and COO of Cropin. Kunal will be the first speaker for today's webinar. He has 10 minutes to speak. We'll be keeping time to that. My colleague Paul is here, and once 10 minutes elapse, Paul will send a private message to the speaker so that they know that they have to kind of round up. Paul, are you on the call?
Yes, duly noted.
Thank you. So Kunal, over to you. Just let me know when to move your slide. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Hi, everyone. Can we get to the slides? These are the three things that we are going to talk about in my presentation. What are the problems that we are facing in agriculture, and technology, how it's going to play the bigger role? How does the investor look at agri-tech space? That's the second one. And how do you basically what are three important valuable companies in agriculture? I mean, three is quite a small number. If I say agriculture is such a landscape, we can have at least 300 valuable companies. And probably in my presentation, I'll cover those aspects. So these are the three broader categories in which I would take my presentation through. Next, please. So before we get into the topic, a quick introduction about Cropin. We are an agtech company. We are based out of Bangalore, and in the last 10, 11 years, we have built a complete full stack agtech platform to empower all the stakeholders in agriculture, from farmers to the extension workers to the agribusinesses which are across the value chain, from farming to seed to agrochemical selling to commodities to government and development organization, and then taking the produce from there to the end customer. So as a full stack company, we are enabling these ecosystem players to use technology, data, machine learning, and AI in terms of effective decision making And when we say effective decision making, it is about for the farmer, what crop he should grow, how he should grow, what time he should spray, what are the pest and disease that might come and attack his crop to help him increase his productivity. On the second side is once the product is ready, it's all about like, how using machine learning and satellite technology to give awareness to the stakeholders, governments, commodity traders, input companies to know about what is going to come out and how they can transact better in those markets. And then eventually, like for the entire stakeholder, how we can talk about sustainable agriculture, how we can talk about traceable food and things around that. That's the broader landscape of the agriculture technology that we bring into play. Next. Can I move the slides? No, yeah. So looking at the $1 billion opportunity in agriculture, like there are, as I said, agriculture is such a large, it has a large landscape. And there are two parts of the problem that we have. One is on the farmer side, when we have billions of farmers across the world facing different types of problems, and every problem that you see has a potential solution. So you talk about climate change, it's a big problem, and there could be multiple solutions that can come and cater to those solutions. So from a Cropin perspective, we are trying to give them early warning disease and pest-based models, complete climate smart advisory services to farmers and things around that. During the recent pandemic, you have seen that the entire supply chain has broken apart, right? Can you bring systems and solutions which can basically connect the farmers and the buyers, and market linkage then becomes a very important service. You see that the international regulations are changing. People are talking about more safe, traceable produce across the value chain. How can you ensure that these services can be rendered to the end customer? We also seeing that the customer preferences are changing, right? Customers which were talking about consuming certain commodities earlier, now they are talking about more different types of food habits. And when we are talking about an integrated value chain and integrated supply chain, where different partners can come together and work end to end for the product to move from the seed till the plate level. And on the right side, if you see, there are different stakeholders, and all of them are doing multi-billion opportunity worth trade in those markets. We're talking about banks, banks which are basically coming and connecting with the farmers to get them access to easy finance, input companies which are selling $1 billion worth of inputs, tractors, implements. We are talking about farming companies, contract farming companies, seed companies which are working again in the produce sector. So if you see all together, this is the largest landscape where the overall agriculture is distributed, and either you can be a full stack player like Cropin, where we are giving end-to-end service to connect the different ecosystem players to the farmers and then solve the different problems, or you can pick and choose one or two single problems and then start going to the farmers altogether and then solving the problem. The approach could be either B2C or B2B. There are different value propositions again in both these models. As Cropin, we are going B2B, and through our B2B value proposition, we are basically engaging with many number of businesses which are then engaging with a set of farmers. So our model of looking at agribusiness is more, or the future of agriculture is more data driven, where we understand that if you have more aggregated data, the data can then be quite an important ingredient for other stakeholders, for banks, inputs, finance to come and interact with them. Next, please. This is what is our global presence in the slide before. Where we have seen that one of the important things is once you start doing things right, the landscape in agriculture is not localized, it's a global market for you. So it's like for Cropin, we started back in India till 2015, we were there solving the agriculture problems in India. And in the last 5 years, we started going outside, and the same platform with a little bit more customization was very much suitable to the needs of the other businesses. So if you have done one thing right, I think the space for you is global. And I think that's what is the opportunity for tech players to come and basically do the entire engagement at. We as a company have been the leaders in the space, as we talked about, from complete farm management solution to supply chain solution to warehousing to market linkage to even machine learning and AI to use predictive models for crop assessments. When you engage, in our case, we have seen, when you engage at the business level, you need to empower their extension teams, agronomists, people in the GOM, the VBAs. So we have a suite of 5-6 applications on the phone, again, for different purposes, for farm management, for farmer management, for supply chain management, for risk management. And these can be given by different users, which can then capture and disseminate the information. And centrally, the entire platform is on the cloud, which means more and more data gets aggregated at the central level, and we are able to do much more predictive and prescriptive work on top of that. The power of cloud technology is that, once the data gets collected, you can actually then bring many more stakeholders to come and collaborate on that part. To give you example, when we do one program in terms of advisory, the data is available for where the farmer is located, what crop is growing. Then this data becomes an important a point for a commodity trader to come and interact with that, a bank to come and lend to that particular farmer, insurance to come and sell the insurance. So that's how we are multiplying the data that is there on a platform and creating multi opportunities for trade to happen. Next. Yeah, this is our global presence. More than 50 plus countries we are operating, and the reason for being there is in the last 11 years we have really architected the product in such a way that it's full stack. We have almost 388 different crops on our platform, more than 13 million acres digitized. So which means the 13 million acres every single season we get this data, and that data then becomes a gold mine for me to do the machine learning to build better products for my customers, and not only solving the current need but also solving the needs of the future. Next. This is the supply chain stack that we have. Little bit detail in the product side, for institutions which are more on the farm side, helping them to increase the per acre value, increase the productivity. Our applications help them in terms of digitizing the farmers, digitizing the land, surveying those information. Then we give them package of practices on using machine learning, early warning signals on pest and disease. We help them in terms of driving sustainability practices on the farm level. Once the produce is ready in a certain manner, then we collectivize. If there is a farmer group, then we collectivize the produce from the farmer group, puts that into a batch, put them in supply chain. The supply chain then does the storage, warehousing, processing, and then the end customer gets the produce. Once the warehousing is done, then either the product can be marketed. We do have a market linkage platform where the product can be either marketed at the consolidate level, at the pack house level, or at the storage level, or it can be even marketed when the produce is at the farm level. So this is how we are helping for a smallholder farmer to connect to the ecosystem players and solve the problem from increasing production to reducing losses of the supply chain, getting them access to finance and markets to help them increase their income opportunities. Next. These are some of the features, once you get deeper into the platform, and these are some of the value propositions that should be there for our customers in terms of cost saving, in terms of better governance, in terms of better quality standards. You should be able to give them better insights. Data analytics is the future. So it's all about how can you help the customer get better insights about the data. We are also helping in terms of helping the customers to create that ecosystem around their data, right? Now from what they're doing, not only to get restricted towards the production, but also open up avenues for them to get access to better services for the farmers that they have in terms of drone sprays, in terms of IoT integrations, in terms of any other services that the ecosystem would like to engage with the farmers. Next. Now when you are a farm manager, you can do a lot of these things. Now you can have multiple crops on your projects. You can configure your workflows. So if you're doing organic or if you're doing a specialty crop, you can do your scouting. You can capture this information as per the requirements for your certification and compliances and things around that. And it's a very, very comprehensive platform, as I said, so you can configure anything in the system and then it becomes an integrated platform for you. Next, please. The next set of features again is in terms of the crop programs, which is traceability. We have weather level intelligence on our platform as well. A lot of investments these days are happening in terms of climate smart agriculture. We are bringing early warning disease and pest-based models. And you have multiple other things on our platform which can help you in terms of getting decision support at the farm level. Next. This is again on the agronomy part. As I said, platform these days are much more integrated. So you have to have APIs. So our platform is open for 88 APIs integration. So you can connect to machines, IoTs, or any other ERP platform for the customer that they have, so that they can connect all the ecosystem in one single place, and you can have a much stronger decision making for your ecosystems. You can advise your farmer better. You can inform your partners better in that particular manner. Next, please. We do use a lot of machine learning and AI, as I said. So using our satellite-based prediction model, we can predict the entire region. So we can predict the country. Like in Nigeria, we predicted sorghum for one of the commodity traders, and the entire country of Nigeria was processed, and we told them exactly which location, which district, how much sorghum is growing, so that they can go and interact in that particular region. And that actually helped the commodity trader to reduce their cost of operations and do better purchase decisions on those farm locations. For the farmer, we can also go to the plot level. So if you are at a bank and you're lending to a particular farm, then we can also process the information about every single farm, and then tell you the credit worthiness of that particular farmer. So if your farmer is far off located, I can tell you that what the crop was grown by the farmer in the last 3 years, what would have been his potential income, and basis that you can finance with a click to the particular farmer. This is the bank risk product that we have launched. Almost 12 banks are onboarded on our platform, and this is seeing a great traction. Next, please. And then final one is a farmer application. This is also very important these days. The farmers have really getting access to smartphones. So we have seen an uptake in terms of consumption of our farmer application. So that's where the farmer is also getting information about the weather, the satellite-based risk, all the particular plots, and the standard package of practices advisories. We can send them training and other materials on the farmer. So any type of communication both ways with the farmers can be established, and the farmer is now much more informed to take to do input transactions. They can raise their requirement for finance, and they can also raise requirements for connecting to market. So these are some of the things that we do. Last slide, please. And we are very, very happy to we have seen that partnerships are the way forward for us to grow, and we are very open to partnering in that particular manner. From the question from the investment perspective, the bigger thing that we have seen is that the data becomes the oil for the development of future products, and that's what Cropin is seen as a clear differentiator, because we have partnered with more than 300 plus businesses across the world, and these businesses have leveraged our platform for multiple ways. But once we create that multiplier effect of data, we can create multiple products and give better services to our not only the existing business but also our future business. So that's the way the investors looks at Cropin as a business, where data is our moat, and that's going to drive our future strategies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kunal. Thank you very much. We really appreciate this session. Please, to all the attendees who have very specific questions or comments on Kunal's session, kindly drop your question on the chat box. Very important. And as you drop it, Kunal will personally respond to the questions that you're asking. So please, through all the slides, all the conversations that Kunal, and this is his question. So what are the problems agriculture is solving, and what role is Cropin playing? And what are the indicators that investors look at to check how valuable an agritech company is? And what are the 3 most valuable agritech companies in the world? And what is the blueprint for growth that we can borrow for agritech in Africa? So those are the 3 questions. Please, through Kunal's slide, kindly go to the chat box. I'll be looking forward to seeing some of the questions. Now we're going to go to the next speaker, who is Sidhartha Samal, the Vice President of Olam. Sid, over to you. Kindly introduce yourself. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer, and thanks, Kunal. That was quite insightful presentation. I am Sidhartha Samal. I lead digital customer engagement and e-commerce for Olam globally. I also lead digital for Africa and Middle East. Prior to this role, I've been a career marketing person, working for leading brands like Airtel and Hewlett-Packard in India. And I was also heading marketing for our packaged food business in Nigeria. Spent 6 beautiful years in Lagos, created pretty large consumer brands like Derica, Tasty Tom in tomato paste, and Freshio in drinking yogurt. In my current role, I interact with farmers, customers, traders, startups, and use those understanding to develop products which are tailor-made for Africa. I firmly believe in all the 3 elements of my role, digital, Africa, and agriculture, and all 3 combined can bring in a lot of positive change in lives and livelihoods. Glad to be a part of this panel, and looking forward to the entire session. Next slide, please. So I was asked three questions. As Vice President, what is Olam doing with digital? How is it looking at AgTech landscape and what collaborations may potentially be there? And the third question is, as a global brand, what digital solutions have been created and how it's scaled? Next slide. I'll start with the first one. Many of you would have seen this funny slide which was circulated around May of last year with the title, Who Led the Digital Transformation of Your Company? Three options, A, CEO, B, CTO, and C, COVID-19, with the option selected as COVID-19. And the implications for many businesses from this slide is you don't have to wait for a crisis to look at innovation and transformation. It needs to happen much before that. And many of the companies who have navigated this pandemic well are the ones which have invested in such things well ahead of time. Next slide, please. Luckily for us, it all started in 2016. It was actually option A or B primarily. And it all started with small scale pilots in some cases, even with 100, 200 farmers, in some cases with 4 or 5 LBAs or cooperatives. And till August, till September of 2018, it was all a learning process, pivoting our solution, looking at what features will work, what will not work, online, offline. So many of those changes happened with in 2 years, 2.5 years. And then from then onwards, we have dramatically scaled up our solutions. Next slide, please. So these are the key areas where where we are focusing. One, we have very large, origination-based buying models. So we have looked at how we can use digital solutions to connect with farmers directly and buy directly from them. In many cases where we can't buy directly from farmers because of either regulatory reasons or the cost benefit doesn't make sense or whatever reasons, we have also looked at models where without any disintermediation, we just digitize those models. We work with cooperatives, we work with local buying agents, but still do it in a digital way. And we have used e-commerce tactically wherever required as a means of connecting with small, medium businesses. We are very bullish and optimistic about farmer services. We believe the future will belong to platforms which can solve most of the needs of farmers and not necessarily solutions which solve specific needs. So we have implemented farmer services platform in a few countries, and we are looking at launching it in Africa as well pretty soon. Traceability and sustainability is a growing theme with consumers. Just imagine you are a consumer, you are drinking a cup of coffee and you have a QR code on the coffee, which when you scan, you can know where the coffee came from, who is the farmer, which village it came from, what are the kind of sustainability activities that is happening there. It just brings in a very different dimension to the way we consume brands and products. And we help various brands in getting those stories, in getting those information in a digital way. Next slide, please. So we have, the initial journey for us was all very internal focus. It was all about solving problems which we have in our value chains, which our farmers have, which our cooperatives have, which our agents have. And till 2021 beginning, it was all about solving those problems and then scaling it up, solving the problems, scaling it up. But 2021 onwards, we have looked at ecosystem partnerships and in a more strategic way. And for us, we believe all of these players, be it NGOs, be it financial institutions, be it tech companies, governments, academia, accelerator VCs, and many startups who are doing tons and tons of good work in solving various problems associated with agriculture as well as farming. Any of these players can be a partner if they can either complement our solution or they bring in some things which can help in making the value proposition stronger from a farmer perspective. Now, speaking specifically on startups, these are some of the areas which we are looking at. Can you go to the next slide from a collaboration perspective? Financial access is an area where we believe things like payments, which can be done directly to farmers, either to their bank accounts or to their mobile money accounts. Just imagine a scenario where you bring in a bag of cocoa. It is measured in a warehouse, and instantly we understand the quality, and instantly we can make a payment directly to the farmer. Now the farmer goes back to his home, and he needs to buy inputs. He goes to a shop where he can use that money which has come in his mobile money account to buy inputs, or he can pay his child's school fees using that account. So I think the beauty of it is not just making a payment, but creating that ecosystem where a farmer can actually use all those money in a paperless or a cashless manner, so that at least there should be 5 or 6 different ways in which a farmer can use it. So this whole piece around payments and ability to do it directly with farmers using digital mediums is an area where collaborations can help. We all know climate change and the impact it has on farmers. So insurance is something which can protect farmers against those risks. So this is also an area where we are collaborating with a player in Africa called as Pula to start penetrating insurance products with farmers. Now, when we are building a farmer services platform, we will solve maybe 3 or 4 problems. There are many problems which where I can use ecosystem players, where I can use other players who can solve it better. So if I am building a platform which has 200,000 farmers, and 200,000 farmers need mechanization service, I don't need to build it on my own. I can plug in a player who provides that. Similarly, primary logistics, which is the logistics that is involved from evacuation of stocks from the farm gate to a warehouse, there are many challenges associated with that part of logistics. So if there are players who are actively looking at that and trying to solve it, that's also an area where collaborations can help. Less than 5% of African farmers have any kind of understanding of their soil, of the kind of soil that they're using. And we all know soil is a key element in agriculture. So if there are cost-effective ways in which soil monitoring can be done, data can be provided to farmers, that's another area. Most of the farmers have some other need about livestock management. This is an area where very little tech enablement has happened. And anybody who is doing something meaningful and relevant in this space can also be a partner. And last, when you're doing all of these, we need to build local capabilities. Just to give an example, suppose I have a agronomy content which is in English. Is there a player who can convert it into 15 or 30 different local dialects which farmers can understand? So things around content, things around farmer training, etc., are also areas where we can look at in a collaborative kind of approach. Next slide, please. So I think the third, this is for the third questions, and which basically, when we started our journey in 2016 to where we are now, we've dramatically scaled up. We have about 40 plus apps and portal in about 38 countries, 9 different platforms, and a very, very strong presence in Africa. On the right side is what you can see, though it's not very visible, but still visually you can interpret it. Most of these are Africa focused solutions, and about 2 million plus registered users, including the farmer services platform that we have in Indonesia and India. Next slide, please. In terms of scale up, some of the solutions which I'll talk about 3 of them. So Olam Direct is our one of the most award-winning solution in our portfolio, which was aimed at buying directly from farmers in plain and simple language. It started from Indonesia, and we started sharing prices with farmers directly. And farmer can give a consent, and then we have a logistics system built into it. We go to the farm gate and buy it. We started from Indonesia and scaled it to about 12 countries now. 3 of them are in Africa: Ghana, Democratic Republic of Congo, and Uganda so far. And this year we are expecting to buy about 200,000 metric ton of volume across 6 different commodities. Next slide. Office stands for Olam Farmer Information System. This is one of the oldest solutions in our portfolio. I am primarily aimed at creating a single source of truth for farmer database. So it has all details about demographics, about yields, about their field sizes, geo mapping, etc. And many of the sustainability programs our sustainability teams use this data point to create sustainability programs for this kind of farmers or farming communities. We all know one of the big challenges in Africa, especially for startups, is primary level, getting primary level farmer data, because it's just not available. Government has not invested in the such data. And we have about 500,000 plus farmers mapped onto a single database. Plus, this is a constantly evolving thing. We have added new models into it depending on the requirements. So we have a new child labor monitoring and remediation system called CLMRS. We do customized farm development plans for specific farmers, almost on a on a yearly basis. About 200,000-300,000 farmers get customized FDP programs. So this is about Office. Can you go to the next slide? No, just before that. The one before. Okay. So DSE stands for Digital Supplier Engagement, and in many of the actually the slide is not there, but I'll just talk about it. So in many of the value chains where we don't distribute it, we still work with regular suppliers. So DSE is the solution that is used for that, where we have engaged suppliers, traceability, and we have about 2,000 plus suppliers on that platform, and about 600,000 metric ton worth of crop volume is being done. So this is my last slide. All that was about scale up, but I think this is the most important slide. Well, it's more about the learnings which we had in the process. So first is look at a problem and solve a genuine problem. It doesn't matter whether you are doing it digitally or analog. Many of the problems to begin with can be solved in an analog manner. Just to give an example, suppose you have you looked at an opportunity where, say, in particular district or a particular set of villages, the farmers are not getting the right price for maize or any other crop which they are doing. And you want to give them a better price discovery, you want to connect them to markets. And to do that, I don't have to create an app or a portal. I can start off with something which is very simple and elementary. I can just have a number which is published, which is given to all the farmers. Every time they have to sell some maize, they can call me. and I can build in a logistics system by which I can collect all of that, from the farm gates. So solving something which is a real problem is more important. Doing it with digitally or analog is not. And many of the solutions, actually, the Olam Direct solution that I talked about, it all started with paper-based system in Indonesia, and then we digitized it. Second, we all know, when we are dealing with farmers, when you are dealing in a sector like agriculture, there are many issues. Farmers are not digitally literate. There are connectivity challenges, there are network issues. So pure play digital is difficult. You have to look at using human linkages on ground. Now, what does that mean? It doesn't mean that as a startup, I will suggest, put hundreds of people on ground, but you have to look at what are the linkages that exist on ground. For example, cooperatives or village youths, and how you can integrate them into a system, either through incentivization or providing them with some sort of value-added services, because your ground presence is critical from a training and support perspective. And this is very important in a agtech, even from an agtech perspective. Third, nothing succeeds like success. Wherever we have success stories, socialize to make sure that those stories are getting communicated to the relevant stakeholders. Use cost-effective mediums, radio or social media or even pamphlets. But you have to make sure that those stories are getting told, because at the end of the day, when you are trying to build a unicorn, your brand is critical. The marketing and all the elements associated with any consumer facing brand, the same would be applicable even in agtech or a fintech space. And you have to start it from when you are from the day one itself. And last, you can start small, but always design for scale. You have to think it from a multi-country perspective. Many of the times, obviously, you guys are very lucky that many of you are from Nigeria, which is a large population and large country. But many of the African countries are small countries. So when you look at opportunities at a per country level, it might look small. But if the same opportunity is a replicable opportunity and at a multiple country level, suddenly it will become very big. So you have to look at, when you are developing your solutions, you have to look at a vision which will be multi-country and which is platform driven, wherein I can connect with platforms and various platforms can connect with me. And that is where, magic can happen. So that's it from my end. I will be happy to take any questions as it comes along. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sid. I am totally just really blown away by your presentation. I would like to speak to a part of what Kunal had said. And Kunal, I'd also like you to respond to this, maybe in the chat room so that everyone can, because we're going to move to the next speaker. For Kunal, there was something Kunal spoke to about data, and looking at the work that Cropin is doing in the agtech space. There's just so much data that collects on the farmers, on the farmlands, on different elements. My question is, how is Cropin looking at interoperability, which is other agritech companies, for instance, VorianCorelli, integrating with Cropin and cascading those solutions to Nigeria, right? Is it something that is proprietary from a Cropin standpoint, or is it something that Cropin is saying we want to expand and we're happy to do a plug and play for companies like VorianCorelli and any other agritech company in Nigeria that wants to collaborate? That's a question that I would like you to respond to in the chat room so that other people can read it and learn from it. The second thing for me is Sid. Sid, your session was just it was so simple and it was just so simple and tangible. And this last slide is everything, which is, so any company here, whether you're in agtech, whether you're in food manufacturing, but most especially agtech, you need to solve a genuine problem. And I like when you say either using digital or analog, because whether you like it or not, there must still be that human analog interaction. We cannot throw it away. It's impossible. It has preceded us and it's going to remain. And we know that agriculture, they're a bit of, a bit late adopters when it comes to technology, but as long as mobile penetration is increasing, digital adoption must also increase in our space. So I like the fact that you solve a genuine problem. Number two, use human linkage on the ground. We can't throw that away. There has to be those, because agriculture is very social. So we can't throw that away. Number three is socializing and storytelling. Your brand is everything. And brand is not just the noise you make on social media. Your brand can be seen, felt, and touched. It is how people interact with your products and your services that is really your brand. What is their perception of you? And how are you able to project that such that stakeholders that matter are able to sit and see what you're doing? And I like when you said use cost-effective measures. You don't need to adopt what another company is doing. You can use a very lean and agile method and get as much mileage from that lean and agile method, as opposed to a massive billboard or millions of dollars in marketing campaigns. If you have it, why not? But you're an Agtech, you're trying to grow for a reason. And finally, anything you're doing, design it for scale. Do not design it for just a few businesses or a few consumers. You need a platform that can reach millions and millions of users. If it's B2B, maybe thousands. If it's B2C, millions of farmers should be able to use your platform. So I really, really appreciate this slide. For all of us raising our hands, I know you have a lot of questions for Sid. Please just go to the Q&A section, drop your questions. And like I said, once we round up the presentations, there will now be verbal and video questions. We'll take that at the end of the presentation. But please, Sid is available. Please respond to it. And Sid, some questions are there for you. Kindly respond to it.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sid. Guys, you can also say thank you to Sid and Kunal in the chat room. It's really, really be very nice for them to see that. I'll be welcoming now Mr. Babatunde Obrimah to speak to us. I know you'll be wondering, why is the Fintech Association of Nigeria, what are they doing here? This is for agriculture, this is for Agritech. There's a reason why Mr. Babatunde is here. Mr. Babatunde, over to you.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thanks for having me. Okay, but for me, I'm a fintech enthusiast, and I'm currently the Chief Operating Officer for Fintech Association of Nigeria. For Fintech Association of Nigeria, fintech is the buzzword. We're a platform for the fintech ecosystem in Nigeria. So our membership cuts across not just the financial technology-enabled organizations, but anybody that's involved in technology-enabled services, providing convenience and doing new things. So our membership, we have Agtech, Agritech, we have Health Tech, we have EdTech, we have the incumbent banks, we have payment fintechs, lending fintechs, wealth tech, insurtech. So it cuts across a wide range. I mean, I have my background in agriculture, interestingly. I mean, before I went into banking, and so I'm able to relate all of this together. So I'm supposed to be responding to 3 questions. And the first question is, being the CEO of the Fintech Association of Nigeria, I mean, which has delivered not just two unicorns, but 3 unicorns as at this morning. What can Agritech do to deliver the unicorn status? I will start by quoting Albert Einstein. He says that we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking with which we used to create them. So if we're going to create unicorns, they're going to be able to do something unique, something special. When you look at the unicorns we have in the financial sector, it's because they're doing things that are actually unique. I mean, I can say boldly that our payment systems in Nigeria is one of the best in the world. And that's why we can see unicorns like InterSwitch, like Flutterwave, and OPay coming out of Nigeria. So when we look at the agri-tech sector, I'll talk about 2 unicorns globally. There's Makai, which is in India, and they what's it called, farmer to restaurant solution. That is, they provide a solution where farmers actually have direct access to restaurants and supply them with fresh food. They are valued about $1.5 billion. Then there's Zymergen, $1 billion. they're into genomics, biotechnology, and doing specific and what's it called, and creative things. So I think that if we're going to create unicorns, they're going to have to be architects doing something unusual. Maybe not the usual thing, because investors want to put they're unique. They can almost see almost a monopoly in quotes. Although they know that technology is not, you can't monopolize it. It's going to open up with time. But then they're looking at what's it called, things that are unique. You have a lot of companies in the Agritech called unicorns that they are soon to become unicorns, but they're into various interesting things. When you take a Sutera that's into medical cannabis, you have Inscripta that's into genome data and database. So for us in Nigeria, which was taking me into the second question, what will agritech companies become? How can they become visible and attractive to venture capital and private equity firms? You have to do something unique. And let me just give a classic example. One of the biggest problems we have today in Nigeria, which is not just it's not just agricultural, it's become political, are the issue of herdsmen. And why do the herdsmen move around? It's because they're looking for pasture. But guess what? With biotechnology, we can produce enough pasture in Northeast and Northwest and also export without the herdsmen having to move around. So technology can solve this problem. And what's that value chain valued at? So when you look at that cattle, just take cattle heads alone. There are about 20 million cattle heads in Nigeria at an average price of 250,000 per cattle head. That's 5.1 trillion naira for just cattle heads alone. By the time you go into sheep and goats, they're looking at another 3 trillion naira. If any architect that moves to that space and can provide solution will become a fast unicorn, because you're doing something unique. The market is large and it's huge, it's tangible. So I think that we need to start looking at, architects need to start looking at doing something really, something unique. There's a crop called the miracle fruit. It's a berry. It grows only in West Africa. It has one of the best natural sugar content, good for diabetic treatment. But in the 50s, the sugar cabal destroyed that business because they had moved into America. But then it's a huge business that can transform, which an architect can look at and start to create. I think that's, we don't need the sugar cartel to destroy that. There's a lot of business within Africa itself. So I think that for architects that become unicorns, we have to start looking at specific, unique things. There are some, I'm beginning to see interesting things. There's a company called BioCrops in Abuja that's focused on seeds, and they're doing seedlings for sugarcane, seedlings for yam, and I think which is quite interesting things. I can see Pepsia doing a lot of things with hydroponics, aeroponics. I think that architects needs to start looking at those specific and unique areas where they can really make an impact, and to collaborate for growth. That is microfinancing of farmers, investing, and insurance. There is no doubt that collaboration is critical for scale. They need to have insurance, partnerships, lending, fintechs, and payment fintechs, such that there's that interaction with architects to be able to ensure that farmers get funding at the right time, because time is critical for agriculture. They get inputs at the right time, and they are properly covered with insurance. If there are issues, they're quickly paid at the right time. So that collaboration is critical for architects to be able to scale. Nobody can do it alone. A payment fintech can't do it alone if there are no e-commerce people or other businesses that are providing services that people need to pay for. So that collaboration needs to occur for there to be scale. So I think that for us to be able to have unicorns, as we architects do things that are unique, that are special. What are the problems in Nigeria that we need really to, I mean, the issues of inputs, what's it called, funding, which are, for me, are generic problems. What are unique problems that we can fit into that can really scale? And I think that's what Agtech companies should be looking at. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Babatunde. Just give me a second.
Recording in
Hi, everyone. It seems we have lost Jennifer, but she'll be joining us very soon. Just be patient with us. She'll be back in the room very soon.
Thank you all so much. Apologies, I had some mild technical issues, but I was able to listen to the end of Mr. Babatunde Obrimah. Mr. Babatunde, please, could you just help me do a quick recap or maybe the last 3 minutes so that I can understand and then hand over accordingly. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I was addressing the last question, you know. No,
just to confirm, Paul, is the next issue from my end?
I think Babatunde's network is breaking also.
Yes. But I can hear him again. You can proceed, sir.
Okay, sorry about that. So I think that Agtechs need to collaborate with other fintech groups, lending fintechs, with payment fintechs, with insurtechs, to be able to deliver to the last mile. Farmers, agric is time-based, so they need to get their funding on time. They need to get their inputs on time. They need to get their insurance cover on time. If there are issues, they need to be paid on time by insurance. So that for there to be skilled, for Agtechs to scale, and like I said, so to round up, I said that for us to be able to have unicorns, we must be doing unique things. I mean, funding, inputs, aggregation. I think that they are generic routine practices. They are fantastic, but I'm not sure that they're going to scale to unicorn. I think unicorns are going to be people who are going to be doing specific, unique things, solving specific problems that can scale and we continue to scale. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Babatunde. That's actually very, very interesting that you said that. And it was important that we had the perspective of someone in the fintech space, not just a fintech player or operator, but an association. Because Mr. Babatunde has seen so many fintechs in their different life cycles, in different evolution periods. And he kind of knows what it takes to get to that billion-dollar valuation. And 3, in fact, I'll say 3, because OPay just became a unicorn as at yesterday or this morning. So he knows it better. What he's trying to say is, if you're an Agritech company, I also believe that even if your solution is generic, even if it's as simple as funding, scale it, do it and do it big, and ensure that you're making impact. And he was also saying that there are some other novel solutions that Agritech companies need to start looking out for and begin to pay very, very close attention to, using the headsmen examples. So thank you so much, Mr. Babatunde. We really appreciate. Our next speaker is Anish Jain. Anish, I just sent you a private message. I'm having some technical difficulties. If you can kindly just project your screen on your end, I would really, really appreciate that.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
Let me just share the screen.
Thank you very much.
I hope the screen is visible, Jenny.
It's still buffering, so I think it will come on very soon. Yes, I can see you now.
Okay, wonderful. First of all, good evening from Dubai. I can see a lot of interesting conversation happening. My fellow panelists have already spoken quite an interesting session about the Agritech and how it can bring sustainable development. And I think most importantly, how we can add value. I'm going to address 3 specific questions around the Agritech space and how we see it from a financing point of view. But before I get into that, a brief introduction about ETG. We are primarily a trading and agriculture processing company based across 48 countries globally, around 29 countries in sub-Saharan Africa. And we deal all kind of staple agricultural products, buying from Africa, processing and exporting it to destination markets. And we also bring commodities into Africa and then distribute it to smallholder farmers. On every year, annual basis, we deal with more than 10 million farmers. They are spread across different countries, and these are the farmers. Either we are buying commodities from them or we are selling commodities to them. So getting straight into the topic of discussion today, which aptly really recognizes that what kind of space that we are looking at, and focusing on exports and liquidity, how it adds value to the overall eco space. So given that kind of a focus in mind, and when we are looking at agri-tech companies, how they operate, I think the first question that was given was really about how the learnings I have received by managing a large treasury organization, which is supporting the purchase and sales of commodities, and also looking at how we are going to manage the liquidity. 1 second, let me just move on my slides.
Yes, we couldn't see your slides. Yes.
I think you will see the slides now. So basically, if I look at the 3 biggest lessons that I have seen managing the treasury and finance for ETG, we have seen in the agriculture sector, especially in the trading environment, the first one is liquidity is the king. When we are looking at managing the operations across multiple countries, for any organization, having the availability of cash is very important. I'm sure my fellow colleagues here would agree with me that when we are doing the buying and the procurement season in African countries, any organization who is sitting with cash and they are ready to do the spot procurement, they will receive the best quality first, and then they will score it. So the most important element is that any company that we are trying to develop, whether it on the Agritech side or on a normal trading, we should have the liquidity in place. The second is traders and farmers are always hungry for cash. So you need to see that how to allocate the cash for best and optimal results. We need to ensure that the investment that is going to yield results are invested in the right channels, in the right products, and making the right outreach to the farmers. And third, which is the most important element towards liquidity, is the risk management. Given that there are still a lot of factors which are unpredictable, and we need to ensure that the risk-weighted returns are capitalized in a long term. We need to ensure that our risk management practices are quite robust, because given the environment of uncertainty and volatile commodity prices, if we are not proper on our risk management, it can easily take away all the accumulated profits. So that's on the first part. If you look at the second broader aspect, what are the frameworks that Agritech companies adopt to manage their liquidity? So I think, again, a three-pronged strategy or a three-pronged response. The first one would be agile, be nimble, centralize your cash flows. I have seen, and I do interact with a lot of Agritech and startups, where we have seen that most of them are quite agile, but they are not able to manage the cash flows properly. Either the promoters are very much focused on developing the tool, platform, and the technology, or they are too much focused on running the ground operations, which is really the ground reality where they are trying to make a real difference. But somewhere in these two, which is the technology side and the business side, you really lose the sight of your own cash flows. So this is again a very important aspect that to the treasury and the finance professionals and even the entrepreneurs who are the founders of Agritech companies, is to really manage very tightly on your cash flows. The second aspect is keep strong partners with you who can provide you short-term funding to meet cash flow mismatches. Again, it's a very important point, because we have sometimes seen that the startups are doing quite well. They are scaling up very nicely, but they will meet some kind of a roadblock where maybe they will realize that 3 months down the line or 6 months down the line, I may not have really cash to even pay my salaries, or I may not have cash to really do the necessary technology upgrade which I'm supposed to make. So in those cases, you really need to have a broader network which goes definitely beyond your family and friends, some kind of strong partners who may be able to provide you short-term liquidity requirement just to manage those 3 months, 6 months until your next round of funding takes place, until your next investor comes on board. So those critical moments of stopgap arrangements are very important, and that is something that all the promoters needs to look out for. And third, which is, I think it's a common known term to everyone, keep your costs to minimum. A lot of time when we are expanding, we tend to lose our sight in terms of what kind of costs are going in doing what activities. Some activities seems to be extremely critical for the success of the business, but they are not cost efficient. Whereas there are certain activities which are very cost efficient, and they also give us quick returns or quick wins. So my request is that keeping in mind the costs to the minimum and quick win solutions always helps us to keep us a boost and momentum to move forward. So that's about how to look at from a framework from an Agritech point of view on the liquidity. Moving on to the third part, when we look at what should be an ideal Agritech product for export, what does ETG thinks of Agritech? I think before I really go into specific comments, I really resonate with what my other colleagues have mentioned, whether it is Dr. Babatunde or it is from Olam side. you really need to look at what is the real problem you are trying to solve. Because once you have a real problem at hand, then you can think about providing a solution. Now, whether it is a digital intervention to find a solution to that problem, or it is something which is more primitive in nature, it doesn't matter. I think digital enhancement is only to provide the scalability and more sophisticated approach of solving a problem. But unless you have a real problem at hand, no matter what kind of technology you are developing, it may not really survive for long. In my role, I constantly interact with a lot of startups, especially in the agri-tech space and even beyond agri space. And we see a lot of times people bring some kind of nice business idea, but they are not really solving a real problem at hand. They are trying to do something which they feel is very important. So I think it's very important to have that kind of a use case at hand and what we are trying to solve. Second is we are looking at the product which increase the efficiency in the value chain, because when we talk about agriculture, it starts from the farm gate and then it goes towards all the way towards the end of the value chain, which is up to the fork. And in each of these aspects of value chain, if we are not creating value for the value chain partners, for the supply chains partners to solve a real problem, then the product will not really see a success. The second aspect is that how we can make sure that our product is really scalable and reducing the manual errors. What are the additional features that we are providing as part of our application or platform or solution, which helps to add value to the end user? Are we really trying to benefit the farmer who is growing the crop? Are we trying to benefit the trader who is trading the crop, the logistics partner, or I'm trying to add value to the end markets where there are demand and supply gaps? So when we are clear on the value chain aspect that where we are targeting, the product and the solution will always have the robust outcome of it. And as I said, it's really about thinking about the farmers and the intermediaries who are really working hard in the fields. Are we really adding the value to the farmers by providing some kind of agri-tech solutions? So keeping these kind of key pointers in mind, I think this is just a small summary of experience in terms of dealing and handling with agri-tech companies. Happy to receive question and answers from the audience. Thank you, Jenny. Back to you, please.
Thank you so much, Anish. In fact, I feel like doing a backflip because I think unless you're in this space, you understand the challenges. When you come into the space, you want to make impact. And then if you don't keep a tight look on your cash, you just basically almost erode all your margins without even knowing it. And you're not keeping sight of your ratios on all the different trends that your business is showing you over the months or the years. I think I'd like to mention something to Sid. Sid, there are over 14 questions for you in the Q&A section. Everybody has been banging on my door. Jen, Sid is not, so please help me.
Actually, I missed out on a lot of the talks because I was answering the questions only.
So they've been knocking. Sid, where is Sid? So Anish, I love the way you've described it. For me, the big thing I'm taking from you, because I think my question to you, and I think you put it in the chat room, and other people can now ask you questions around cash, because many companies now are in the startup phase. Between the first to fifth year, there's a particular liquidity volume and ratio that classifies you as a bit of a startup, right? So there are different cash volumes that you have as an organization. If you were the CTO, for instance, of VorianCorelli, let me just give you a very, very practical question. If you're brought in on board as a CTO today for VorianCorelli, from a strategic treasury operation standpoint, what framework are you going to put together for VorianCorelli as a startup? Let's assume our starting capital is $200,000, hypothetically, right? How would you start thinking about the business? How would you begin to put the frameworks? How would you think about that $200,000? I think to everyone, that 200K could be any amount currently in their business, and they can't afford an experienced CTO like you. So how would you think about it? Can you just put it in the comments section, and then I believe everybody start bombarding you. I can see questions already for you. They will start bombarding you with questions. So to the attendees, I'd like to request, ask very practical questions. Don't be generic. Don't just say about the market or about this. Be specific about your business. If there's any specific problem you're experiencing in your business today that you believe Kunal, Babatunde, Sid, or Anish can give you some advice, you can direct message them, or you can send it in the group so that everybody can learn. So please feel free to ask your questions. So Sid, I'll be looking forward to my new CTO's response. I'd appreciate that. Thank you. The last but not the least, we have Mr. Akeredolu-Ale, who is the MD CEO of the Lagos Commodities and Futures Exchange. He was carefully put in as the last speaker because his session is a quite interesting session, starting with an agritech company, ending with a commodities exchange, and in between, we have a food manufacturing company, food processor, we have treasury operations, exports in between. We wanted to make it a full stack of speakers. So over to you, MD, Commodities Exchange. Kindly introduce yourself. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. My name is Akeredolu-Ale. I'm the Managing Director of Lagos Commodities and Futures Exchange. I'm very happy to be here today. And I'm also very, very happy with the previous speakers, and they've touched on things by way of what we call superstructure that's required in Nigeria. First of all, I have 4 things to address, 3 things to address by way of questions, which I'm going to be addressing gradually. The first one is what is layman's description of the capital markets? And we should look at examples of very successful companies that have raised money in Nigeria. Then what are the governance arrangements and process for companies who want to be listed and raised? Then how do you differentiate funding from the capital market from every kind of funding, and what should be done? Thank you very much. In a simple language, capital is capital. You go, and then I'll start from the potentials of Nigeria. The agri space in Nigeria drives up almost about 70% of our economy in Nigeria, employs almost about 80% of the people by way of population in Nigeria. But the major issue about capital, which has been the sectoral risk of that particular sector. I'll touch on the risks briefly, and I'll touch on how to ameliorate those risks and how to work on them. The first set of things I'm going to ask is, the commodities exchange have been set up in Nigeria. Are we accessing it from the agri space? Are we taking advantage of it? Are we using it? Are we leveraging on it? The answer for now is no. And the reason is, for now in Nigeria, the commodities ecosystem, the commodities exchanges is a new concept. And it's a concept that people will have to sit down and understand to know how it works. Now, what is capital? At a function that I had been to in a while back, I was surprised when I heard that when Olam started in Nigeria, Olam started with $6 million. That is capital. Whatever we discuss from a fintech point of view, from the agri point of view, from a production, from a data point of view, the bottom line is still capital. Now, how do we aggregate capital? How do we mobilize capital? Then how do we get capital across to the people that need it? Now, for it to be and get it across to the people that need it, for a particular sector that people believe is a high-risk sector, you will have to be able to first of all risk that particular sector. And for you to be able to attract capital, you have to be able to use instruments, various types of instruments from a capital market that can be used in raising capital. There are different types of instruments. There are commercial papers, there's exchange-traded instruments that can be used, and there are some basic ones that I'm going to touch on during the discussion. Now, what does the capital market do? In a nutshell, what the capital market does is it mobilizes capital savings to where it's needed, where it can be used. Now, if there's a gap between where the savings is being mobilized and getting to where it's needed, the only thing that happens is that it will go to the easiest route. That is why you see that capital has been mobilized, goes to other sectors more, but it's not getting the agri sector. What we're going to be addressing today, from my own point of view, is how do we create a nexus whereby capital can move towards the agri sector. Now, what we've been able to do is that the first set of things that needs to be done is we have introduced structure into the commodities ecosystem. It is the structure and transparency that would allow for capital and liquidity to flow into that system. What are the things that are required in that particular ecosystem? We'll discuss as we keep on speaking, as I keep on making my presentation. But in a nutshell, what we're going to be looking at is the production part of it, the processing part of it, the logistic part, how to finance it, this cold storage part of it, the storage part of it, which addresses the issue of post-harvest losses. But before I say anything, I'd like to put the caveat straight in place that anything that happens in the commodities ecosystem or on the commodities exchange must first of all be approved by the Securities and Exchange Commission in Nigeria. The exchanges are duly regulated by SEC and are duly monitored by SEC so that investors' funds that go into the agri space or any other space are fully protected and are certified are going into the right place. So that is what the commission is playing as a role in putting that. In doing that, SEC had done some new innovations recently for us. One of them is they gave out the crowdfunding rules. A better part of the fintech companies that have been raising capital now, they're using crowdfunding methods to raise capital. Now, the Securities and Exchange Commission has looked at it that, look, we need to regulate this to protect investors so that some people space and abuse that space. The Securities and Exchange Commission has also put in place what we call the collateral managers. The collateral managers will be able to handle the warehouses when it gets there. And when it gets there, easily the people that want to do fungible instruments, that want to create instruments, will be able to rely on the sign-off of the collateral managers to be able to raise capital for those warehouses there. Then recently also, the Securities and Exchange Commission also engaged the PENOP, which is the Pension Operators of Nigeria. That's for the big end part of capital raising, whereby the pension funds in Nigeria can be, addressed toward the agri space too. That is ongoing too. And lastly, they've done also an alignment with the insurance sector by speaking to the NICOM, Insurance Commission, to be able to say, look, we need products that can give guarantees to farmers, for people that want to invest in the agri space to be able to invest. That is ongoing. That's been worked on in that particular space. Now, let me move back to capital raise and how do you go about capital raise? Before you raise capital, even if you're a farmer or anybody, the first thing that you need to do is, first of all, you must realize that there must be quality. And that has to do with the input, which has been discussed earlier. And on the issue of quality and standardization, that has to be put in place in first place. Now, I'm happy about you bringing fintech into this. The major reason why I'm happy about bringing fintech into this is that technology is now the new global international language. It cuts across. You can communicate with anybody in any part of the world without having to understand their language. And that is also going into the finance part of what needs to be done. Easily, finance can come from the world now if it's regulated and properly structured in that particular space. So what are we going to be discussing today from our own side? The first side is, as an exchange, what we are looking at for the agri ecosystem is scalability. For the young ones that are coming up, how do you scale up their activity? How do they raise capital? What is the sequence for raising capital? What are the requirements for raising the capital that's going to be needed? And in the short term, medium term, long term, how do you go about this? For us to do that, what we have done is we've broken the agri ecosystem into 6 different aspects. We looked at the commodity aggregators. Those are the people that buy goods and commodities, different types from smallholder farmers and put them in their warehouses. And from there, they batch it, they certify it, and they sell to other people. Then we're looking at the second part, which is very critical, processing, because we realized that for commodity processing in Nigeria, by the time you process, the value of whatever commodity that you have goes about 15 to 20% or more. Now, the big issue, the elephant in the house, is the logistics, the heavy equipment, the mechanized farming. An average farmer, a small farmer, can they mobilize capital to be able to do proper farming, to be able to buy proper inputs, to be able to have proper storage facility, to have post-storage facility, to have warehouses, are those things in place? Those are part of the things that we have looked at that. All these things in silos and in piecemeals require infrastructure. Now, in Nigeria, we have the cold chain part. We have the livestock part of it that nobody's touching really. Most people are focusing on commodities, grains, and all that. The cold chain part is very important. It goes from dairy to meat to livestock to all that. There has to be a structure in place that can be used for preservation, evacuation, and for export and for production. That on its own has to be financed too. Now, on the issue of extraction and production in that particular space. So what we've discovered in Nigeria is that a lot of Nigerians are working in silos, in small bits and pieces. What the exchanges are here to do, particularly, is to create a centralized coordination of a proper structure to be able to assist people to capital mobilization, to be able to mobilize capital, to be able to inject and scale up what they're doing in that particular space. There is no institution that you have mentioned here today or that mentioned here today that did not have adequate capital, from Olam to any other ones. And in some cases, some of these institutions have better access to capital outside Nigeria to be able to operate. What we are trying to do is let's be able to create an environment whereby a smallholder farmer, a medium-sized farmer, and a big mechanized farmer should be able to access capital in Nigeria and to be able to grow this space. Now, how do you do that? We can't be lazy about that because we are an exchange and we're duly regulated. The first thing that people, the investors, will look at is what is your governance structure? You might say that, what does a farmer need for, why would a farmer need a governance structure? Well, if you want to do agriculture, you can be a farmer. But if you want to do agribusiness, then you must have a proper governance structure, business structure. That business structure will make it easier for investors to understand who are the people behind this organization. If I give them my money, are they traceable? If I give them my money, will they be able to manage it very well, like ETG mentioned earlier? There's some institutions that are coming up that the volume of capital that if you give to them, they might not have the necessary expertise to be able to manage it. Meanwhile, agriculture requires heavy amount of capital. We are talking about, in some cases, billions. And nobody's going to just bring out billions and give it to an unknown person. So the governance structure is important. Now we have a listing requirements. The listing requirements is being made as simple as possible to be able to onboard people from the beginning. You are small, you want to niche a particular sector, you want to focus on cocoa beans, you want to focus on just paddy rice, you want to focus on just sorghum, or you just want to focus on cold rooms, whereby you process poultry and you call chicken and you store them. You want to focus on that. To do all that, Agridata had mentioned something earlier, but did not get to that. Have records. You have to have data. These data should be things that can be seen, can be traceable, and can be interpreted. One of the things that are required is basic minimum. If you're able to say that in the first year, this is what I did by way of, in the second year, this is what I did by way of accounting. If you're able to have such simple things, what it means, come to the exchange and you say that, look, I've done 100 million last year by way of activity. This is my audited account. I did it the year before. What I want to do is I want to scale up my activity from, let's say, 5 million to 50 million in 3 years, and I want to raise some forward contracts. Will I be able to raise capital to be able to do that? Yes. When people say that you have proper audited account, you have a proper structure, they will give the money to you. All the fintech companies that have been spoken about today, people just didn't dump money into their laps. They had a track record of what they have been doing, and that's one of the things that people look at. Now, how do you go about it if you want to engage at the exchange? You need to speak to a transaction advisor or some of our daily member firms. We have 50 daily member firms. What the transaction advisor just does is they midwife you and organize you to be able to come to the exchange. Now, let me give a very simple example of someone that come into the exchange to raise, to come and indicate to raise capital. The cashew sector in Nigeria is seasonal. And the cashew sector that's seasonal in Nigeria, what it does for us is that it requires a lot of capital and it's seasonal. If you have such access to cashew and you have access to offtake, you can put your business proposal together, come for your initial screening. If you're screened, then you have an opportunity to be able to list on the exchange, on the exchange. And if you're able to do that, then you're able to raise additional, next slide, please, additional capital. So if you do all this and you come to the exchange will be able to assist you. Now, what are the differences between the capital market? What can the capital market compare to the money market? The major thing about the capital market compared to the money market is you will be able to access what we call understanding capital. Understanding capital is patient capital, because agriculture minimum, you need about 24 to 36 months minimum, which is like medium term. You require that, but if you're looking at the money markets, the funds they are more short term. And at the end of the day, that's why people that engage the banks or the money markets have issues within 24 to 36 months, because the funds will be recalled back. Also, the capital market allows you to be able to put some of your money in the operational part and to be able to build up your structure. To be able to have a clear picture, the commodities exchanges don't invest or don't raise capital in your shares, what it does is it raises capital to support your operation, to be able to have operational capital based on your track record and your last record by way of your cash flow. That is what the commodities exchange is about. And we create that medium whereby if you want to, and you're a startup, for example, in the fintech space, if you've gone deep into crowdfunding and you have a track record, you can easily bring your Greek fintech organization onto the commodities ecosystem to scale up and raise capital to the next level. Yes, next slide, please. Yeah, okay. So before I close my conversation, one of the key things that we still need to do by way of potentials in Nigeria is the fact that people have realized all over the world that farmers are still the richest people all over the world, except in Nigeria. So what the commodity section is doing, the Lagos Commodity Affairs is doing is we are providing what we call a two-way quote. And two-way quote allows price discovery. And that what price discovery does for you is like, it makes sure that people that are into production of standardized products, don't get cheated by way of price discovery. They get the right price for what they want. One. Then two, they can access patient capital to be able to scale up their activity in the ecosystem. Thank you, Jennifer, for having me here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Akeredolu. I really appreciate it. I've been getting side comments on all the speakers, and so far they've been really amazing comments. Everyone just says the sessions have been extremely relatable and very simple to understand, and I sincerely appreciate your time. We have now officially 30 minutes to the end of this webinar, and would like to utilize it primarily for our attendees. There has been so much engagement in the Q&A chat room, and I really appreciate if the attendees can direct questions on capital raises, on the commodities market, on the exchange, anything directed to MD Akeredolu to the Q&A session. You can ask questions and get clarifications in that session. At this moment, we want to select, I would say, 5 people. And I would like to just kindly request that all the speakers kindly turn on their video because we're almost at the end of the session. And we would really want our attendees to extract as much value at the end because we've actually been speaking and they've been the ones listening. So now it's time for them to actually speak. If you have a specific question, kindly just raise your hand. And then in the chat room, you just say what the question is about and then who you're directing the question to. So that it's like a filtering process before we turn on your camera and turn on your audio. And then you can ask the question directly to the speaker. I can see Chukwu Uche Godswill, your hand is up. Kindly just go to the chat and send the message on what's your question bordering on and who would you like to direct your question to. One question to each of the final of the panelists so that we can they can respond and we can find and close by 4. I'm usually very time focused. So Chukwu has raised his hand. Chukwu Uche Godswill, Miriam Yakubu, Arebosola Aderopo. 2 more people, you can raise your hands. I can see Alebode Isedu. And who else? Who else? I can see Enei. So please go to the chat room, write down your question. You can just say capital markets, Mr. Akeredolu. That could be so that we know what the questions you want to ask and we are able to sanitize it a bit. Anish, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Paul, are you here as well so that you can give them access to speak and turn on their own video?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, I haven't seen any questions in the chat room yet. I think we can just start with Anish. And also there's some unanswered questions in the Q&A session. I think the first question, I think I'll just ask so Anish can speak whilst we wait for the attendees is, Anish, I'd asked the question before we handed over to Mr. Akeredolu around, you are just being hired as a CTO for an Agritech that just has $200,000 as their cash. How are you going to look at it? What frameworks are you going to put in place? We can't have all the answers here, but how are you going to look at it? And this company wants to become a $1 billion business in the next few years. So how would you respond to that, Anish?
Thank you, Jenny. It's a very interesting question. And very challenging too as well, because it's very difficult when you are joining a startup and you are looking to scale it up, especially if you want to take it up to the unicorn level. But certainly, if I have to look at from a finance and treasury perspective, I think there are a couple of points, as I have also mentioned during my session, that you need to be really doing the cash flow forecasting for the organization, because as you scale up, you need to see that what kind of cash flow needs you will have and make the provisions ready, both for short term and long term. Certainly for a growing organization in the long term, we can definitely see some investors coming in, but for the short term, you need to have some cash ready at all the times to meet the requirements to manage your growth and development of the organization. I think another aspect is to keep the pipeline always very healthy and ready, because what we have seen in the past that typically the promoters and the company they are very focused on maybe 1, 2, or 3 top investors or financiers. But I have seen most of the successful entrepreneurs, if they are keeping a very healthy and long pipeline ready, it always serves best, because you never know what kind of challenges may come in certain areas and how maybe your number 6, 7, and 8 will come and help you in cash flow needs. So those are some of the things that I will keep in mind. And at the same point of time, you need to make sure that your growth is calibrated as per the requirements of your business.
Hello.
Yes, please.
Anish, you can proceed. Please hold.
So just completing the response, that I think, again, going back to the main point, liquidity plays a key important role, because as Mr. Akeredolu also mentioned, that at the end of the day, money is money. We need to ensure that it is consistently provided into the system to keep the organization going. So that's something that's very important. Thank you.
I like your response, Anish. Thank you very much. Okay, I think we have Chukwu in the room. Mr. Chukwu.
Hello.
Mr. Chukwu.
Yeah, good afternoon, ma'am.
If you can turn on your video, can we see you, if you don't mind?
Yeah, my video is on.
We can't see you though.
What?
We can't see you though. But you can proceed, it's fine. If we can't see it, but we can see you. Yeah.
Okay, my question is to Mr. Akeredolu. My question goes like this: what's the role of cryptocurrency in funding agricultural businesses? Like those, cryptocurrency is also a mode of payment. Can you hear me loud and clear? Hello, sir.
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay. This we're in a digital world, and cryptocurrency, people use this cryptocurrency. So what's the role of cryptocurrency in funding agricultural markets? Like as a startup capital, what's the role? Like those that are into cryptocurrency can they also fund or use cryptocurrency as startup capitals for businesses? What's the role of cryptocurrency in business in sorting for capital? That's what.
Okay, should I take the answer immediately, Jennifer?
Yes, you should. Thank you.
Okay, first of all, thank you for asking that question. You see, the exchanges in any country, including Nigeria, are regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission. And then for every product that's going to be listed or tradable on any commodities exchange or any other exchange, there has to be guidelines to guide the processes and regulations for it. Currently, for cryptocurrency in Nigeria, there's just been a guideline that's been issued, that's been fine-tuned for people to be able to participate. But I can reassure you that cryptocurrency is almost immediately one of the new sectors that the global community is looking at on how to use them in finance, in agriculture. But for now, since there is not yet a clear, full approval by the Securities and Exchange Commission, it is something that we'll still wait for the guidelines to be able to participate in it. Anybody that currently participates in it will be able to do that under what we call the OTC. It will be more like over the counter for now. So it has to be approved by the regulator for it to become tradable. I hope I've been able to answer that question.
For me, yes. I think, I don't know where Chukwu is. I think he's been Chuku, are you here? Hello, Chuku, are you here? Was your question answered? Okay, I think while we wait for Chuku, I would like to just plead with all the panelists. There are some questions in the Q&A session directed to, I can see one for Dr. Babatunde, one for Dr. Akeredolu, one for Sid, one for Anish. There are lots of questions. So I'd really appreciate if you can use this opportunity to just respond to the questions accordingly. Do we have any question for any verbal question? I can see Miriam Yakubu's hand is up. Miriam Yakubu, some of your questions are for Mr. Akeredolu and Akinsola as well. So you will respond to it in the chat room. Chuku, please, can you kindly unmute? Can you kindly mute your mic? Thank you. Miriam Yakubu has been given access. Miriam, can you turn on your video?
There's no option for video here.
Paul, can you kindly give her access? And who is the question directed to, please? Which of the panelists?
Well, any of them can answer my question.
Perfect. Okay, proceed.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mariam Yakubu, calling from Kebbi State. My question is, this has really been bothering me. Down here in the north, we hardly get access to all this funding, especially international fundings and grants for startups. I have products like I'm into food processing, and anyone that sees them, maybe they come for expos, they keep saying your products are international standard, the packaging is good, but they are still here in Kebbi. I'm registered with Export Council, but none of my products have crossed Nigeria, maybe through friends. Okay, they will say, give it to this person to bring it to UK. I have that. But then for me to export, I've not gotten that opportunity. And I have the product. If you can see my display picture, you see me with some of my products. So that really has been bothering me. How can we in the north, I'm calling from Kebbi State, how can we in the north that are into food processing get access to all these benefits that are available to those in food processing? Thank you very much.
This is an interesting question. I'm just looking for who to direct the question to. I don't know if it's Sid or Kunal. Sid and Kunal, you look like this question fits you. I don't know who can handle this very.
Okay, let me take it. So I think, Mariam, what you were saying is you have a product which is exportable, but you're not able to export it outside of Nigeria. So first is you have to look at the regulatory aspect. For exporting anything, you will need some kind of license. So first is you need to check on that. Second is whatever you are exporting. I can see you have from whatever I can see on the image. I think you have taken some crops and processed it and packed into into maybe 1 or 2 kg packets, and you are selling it. So first is you need to understand where where the market lies for such products. If it's a spices, are you looking at exporting it to India or Southeast Asia, or where exactly is the market for such products? And once you understand the market as well as the regulatory aspects involved, then basically you need to connect in the destination markets with certain players or some small and medium businesses. Start with small quantities, first have some kind of trust built into your relationship, and then I think you can look at scaling it up.
Thank you very much, Anish, for that, Sid, for that question. And just to also speak to Mariam as well, I also feel like you need to be very locally relevant before you begin to maybe think of exports, yeah? The products we have today how vertically integrated are those products in Kebbi, not even in Nigeria? Are you in the #1 brand even in Kebbi, in your local community, before you begin to think of expanding to, say, a big city like Lagos or to Abuja, or even to out of the country? The second thing you also mentioned was around funding, that getting funding for startups like yours in the North is also a very difficult one. Funding is a difficult challenge all around the world. It's not limited to you in Kebbi State, it's everywhere. And companies or banks or financiers that want to give capital want to be very clear on the business model, right? And to ensure that they will not be losing their money. So I think on your own end, just an advice from one female entrepreneur to the other, it's just important that your story is very crisp and sharp. What's your business model? How do you sell this? Because at the end of the day, it's Naira and Kobo when it comes to financiers. The social impact is there, but they want to understand, how do we make more money? How do I ensure that I don't lose money? How am I going to multiply this? So that needs to be clear. And I believe maybe outside this meeting, I can send you my email and then we can begin to have that conversation. There are banks that are investing in the agri space really heavily. There are different venture capital firms that are trying to invest as well, but then your numbers need to make sense and you need to be very clear to them. I don't know if we answered your question, Mariam, so we can move to the next one.
Yes, you did. But then you mentioned, okay, we need to get some license. We have some license. We're registered with NAFDAC. And like I mentioned, Export Council. And yes, we're relevant here. Our products, we have market in US.
Got disconnected.
I think she's gotten disconnected. Mariam, I just sent you my email privately, so maybe when you're back, kindly just you can reach out to me separately. Thank you so much. We have just room for 2 to 3 more questions. Paul, who else did you give access to, if you don't mind?
We were going to bring Alebody on board, but I can't find him on the list anymore.
Okay. All right. I think there's a question from Uchenna. Is Uchenna in the room? Maybe we can give her access. Uchenna, can you kindly raise your hands? I can see a question in the chat room. And I think there's a question also from Mr. Bolaji Akimboro. His hands are raised up as well. So I think, Uchenna, are you there?
Hello?
Yes,
Hello?
there's actually no question from me. I couldn't see
hello?
Mr. Anish before, but I'm happy to see him. Thank you very much, our panelist, Sid, Dr. Babatunde.
Thanks, Bolaji.
Mr. Prasad, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anybody, you can ask your question. Who is your question directed to?
Okay, so he didn't have a specific question. He wanted to thank the panelists, and I think he's done with that.
Okay.
There was some question on digital marketing. Maybe I can take that.
Was that from Uchenna? Uchenna, are you there? Maybe you can ask it directly.
Yes, hi, good afternoon. My question wasn't directed to a particular speaker, right? And anyone can actually, answer it, please.
Please, you can ask the question again.
All right, so the question is, trying to understand how digital advertising, right, can help in growing and scaling agri-tech businesses, both in Nigeria and, across board West Africa as well. Thank you.
Yeah, Sid can.
I can.
Yeah, so
I can take that.
I think I'll do a cocktail. Maybe Kunal, if Kunal can respond to that, and then Sid can finish that up, because Sid is the king of digital marketing for Agri. So it would be nice to hear
from. What was the first part of the question? I missed the first part.
Uche, you can ask the question again.
Hi, Jennifer, can you hear me?
Perfectly, Uche, we can hear you.
Okay, so I said, I'd like to know the role of digital advertising or marketing, as the case may be, in helping agri-tech businesses grow and scale in Nigeria and probably West Africa as well, as a whole.
Yeah, I think that's a very important question, and in this digital era, digital marketing plays a very, very important role in helping you get access to your set of customers. Potentially, like, if you're an agri-tech company like Cropin, we do a substantial investment in terms of digital marketing, which gets in terms of content marketing, LinkedIn marketing, Google marketing, which helps me to get leads for accessing my platform. Similarly, for any entrepreneur, like, if you're selling a product, like, the one that we saw in the last question, or if you are bringing a service for the stakeholders, it's important for you to take it to the beneficiaries. And digital marketing is a big, now everyone is on the mobile phone, everyone is swiping information on Facebook, on LinkedIn. So the best thing to reach out to them is use digital tools. And I think that's basically possible. You have to have a balance between digital and non-digital. Like, there are different, again, processes around that, but I think there are a substantial portion of your forward marketing should be dependent on digital marketing.
Yeah, I think, and just to add on to what Kunal said, I think he captured most of the points, but see, at the end of the day, it also depends on your objective. So if you are a new startup, your objective is about driving reach, you want to, or it's about getting more customers. If it's driving reach, then the platforms that we'll choose would vary from if your objective is more about driving adoption. And you have to look at cost-effective ways of doing it. So things like influencer marketing, especially micro influencers, smaller influencers who are less than 5,000 followers, who will cost you less as well. These are the kind of things which you can look at. Similarly, for example, if you are a little large player and you have lots of money to spend, there also you can look at cost-effective ways. Just to give you some example, especially in a Nigeria context, all of you know Mark Angel comedy, right? So every video that they do will cost you a lot less than if you do a TV advertisement, but their reach for each video is 2-3 million kind of base. So you have to look at different platforms, different content creators, and use a mix of it. But there is no doubt that digital marketing is critical. Average user spends more than 140 minutes on social media. That is where the eyeballs are. And if you want to build your brand, communicate your stories, a mix of any of these channels, be it social media, LinkedIn, Google search may be a little less relevant if you are an early stage startup, but search marketing becomes critical if you are a slightly evolved startup.
Thank you so much, Sid. We really appreciate. We can see some more hands, but one of the biggest challenges I have now is that there are so many questions in the Q&A session that have not yet been attended to. I think, it would be nice if the panelists can just go kindly respond to them very quickly. And we have the next 15 minutes to round up this meeting. I don't know if there are any other specific questions, and if not, we could just take maybe vote of thanks from all the speakers, just to get that. And then whilst responses are going on, we can just have a vote of thanks from all the speakers. I think we'll start in the same sequence that we had, and then we close with Mr. Akeredolu giving the final one so that we can close the meeting now. I would like to especially thank all the speakers that dedicated their time and their efforts to bring this event to life. It's almost 2 months in the making, and all the correspondences, all the engagements, they've been extremely responsive. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to have had and organized this roundtable with you. Next year, by God's grace, we're going to have an Agritech Decoded event, and we're hoping that more Agritech companies would spring up, and soon to be unicorns would also spring up in the space, and we'll be highlighting them on that day next year. So we're very grateful and we're very thankful. I think we'll go to Kunal. And I think for me also, one thing I also appreciated about this event is the level of clarity and how crisp the conversations were extremely practical, at least for me. It was very practical for me. So thank you very much. Kunal, over to you.
Thanks, Jennifer. I think, yeah, so thank you all for listening to us patiently. And I really love the questions that were asked. I think it's very important to have a discussion. It's more like a learning platform, learning from experiences. And I think that's how the platform was planned out. How do you create your agri businesses and how do you make them as unicorns? Like, you know, from the stage that you are in right now, I think there was quite a learning. As panelists also, we learn right now. So when we listen to other speakers, we also learn about the market and what could be their suggestions for other entrepreneurs. So I think altogether it was a great experience. And from a Cropin perspective, like, no, Jennifer asked that question that, no, how open are you in terms of participation and collaboration on the data that we have? So we are very open. We have close to 1 million farmer data on our platform and very open to partner with any of these entrepreneurs. Bring your access to finance services, insurance, inputs or markets, and we'll be happy to collaborate with you. Also, thank you once again, Jennifer, for organizing this and looking forward to this.
Thank you so much, Kunal. Sid?
Thanks a lot, Jennifer. I think it was a brilliant session, a lot of participation, a lot of questions, and very different, varied list of panelists who, who bring in very different kind of learnings from their respective experiences. It's always a pleasure to interact with entrepreneurs like you, Jennifer, as well as many who have joined in this call. I know many friends who are entrepreneurs. It's a lonely journey. Sometimes it's depressing, but what you guys do is far more, satisfying that many of the corporate 9-to-5 jobs. So hats off to you. I think unicorn is a journey. I mean, some will go there, some will not reach there. But at the end of the day, if you are solving a genuine problem and building a company which is helping farmers improve their livelihoods, improve their income, improve their yield, then you are doing justice to to your job or to the role. So all the best to all the entrepreneurs who are a part of this call. Happy to help in whatever way I can, personally as well as professionally, being part of Olam, which has a strong and a very large presence across Africa. And it is actually a great example of a Africa born, bigger than unicorn to an extent. So, and the journey started more than 30 years back in Nigeria when none of these was, there. So thanks everyone, and thanks a lot, Jennifer, for a brilliant, event.
Thank you so much, Sid. Much appreciated. Next is Mr. Babatunde. Yes, Dr. Babatunde.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me. About 2 weeks ago, I was on an and they had asked me what would I like to see in the fintech ecosystem in the next 5 years. And I said, well, in the next 5 years, I would like to see at least 5 unicorns. I'd like to see investments scaling to $1 billion. And I can say that in 2021 alone, we've already seen close to $700 million already. So we might close even this year with $1 billion, which looks like far away. So for me, it would be something exciting that in the next 5 years, we actually see a unicorn in the agri-tech sector in Nigeria. I think it should be something to look forward to. So thanks for having me, and have a nice evening, everybody.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dr. Babatunde. Anish?
Yeah, thank you. I think it was a great, interesting session, and learned quite a lot from all the panel members, and very interesting questions and answers by the audience as well. I think, as some of my fellow panelists said, that this journey is quite long and sometimes it becomes quite boring and frustrating, but definitely I would say that keep the momentum going. It's something that's your passion, and keep the cash tight. Definitely the success will come. Nothing can stop it. So all the best to all the people who are embarked on already on this journey, and people who are still thinking. There's never been the better time. So all the best.
Thank you so much, Anish. And I think we'll hand it over to Dr. Akeredolu, who would now close the webinar officially. I wanted us to close on time. Thank you so much. Dr. Akeredolu, over to you, sir. Hello. Hello. Okay. In the absence of Akeredolu-Ale, I think my chairman, Mr. Bolaji Akimboro, will just give the final vote of thanks and we can close the session.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. I would just like to thank all our panelists very, very specially for honoring us by participating. I'm Sid, Anish, Dr. Babatunde, Akeredolu. Thank you so much. We really appreciate. And we'd like to thank all our, I'm really amazed that so many people turned up. Thank you. It just shows that Agritech is going to be the next sector that we're going to be hearing lots of good news, the way we had over the past few days regarding OP and their $400 million raise. So I want to say thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing you again for Agritech Decoded season 2. Over to you, Jennifer, because I'm sure you want to have many seasons of this.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all our attendees. We appreciate you. Have a very good day, and we started on time and we closed on time. Thank you so much. And bye.
Bye. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.